In this video, we're checking out Black Lion Audio's hot-rodded version of the timeless classic for FET compressors, the 1176, and we're going to find out how this stacks up against our hardware and our software versions. Let's check it out. Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight Studio, and today we're checking out Black Lion's 17. This is their take on the 1176 with a lot of cool new modifications made to it, and we're going to see how it compares to our existing 1176. So let's check it out. Dull knife, and there's the unit as well right there inside. All right, everything looks great. Looks like it's in great shape. All right, so they actually include their own shipping box, which is even cooler. That really says a lot about just the product packaging and everything. So inside of there is its own shipping box in addition to Sweetwater making a great job of the packaging as well. And let's see. And then the interior boxing, we have the unit itself very well packaged. And the unit definitely has some heft to it as well. We've got a power cable, and then the unit itself, really nice looking unit, and it's got some real heft to it as well. So anxious to get this into the rack and see how it sounds and it performs. And we'll try this on a bunch of different settings and see what our take on it is.
Black Lion says the 17 is not your grandfather's 1176 compressor. It's not even a remake, but rather Black Lion's take on what the classic 76 limiting amplifier could have been given the benefit of today's technologies. It features some notable exceptions to the 1176 architecture, like a sidechain high-pass filter and a compressor mix wet-dry knob. The internal boards are manufactured in China, but the final assembly, including the addition of a custom output transformer, is done right here in the US, and each and every unit is hand calibrated before it leaves the Chicago factory. The back of the unit contains the power connector, a voltage selector switch, although ours in the US was already set at 115. This is such a welcome addition to see a full-fledged power supply internally as opposed to just a DC connector. Many of the other units in this price category cut corners in this regard. And rounding out the rear connections, our input and output XLR line level connectors, as well as an RCA link port that allows two units to be run in stereo operation. One of the first things you notice about the Black Lion 17 is the overall build quality, which is outstanding. All the knobs and buttons and controls have a solid and firm feel to them. They feel and behave like quality components. All of the potentiometers on the unit, and this is true of all of them, are detented, so they click into each one of their positions. This makes recalling a hardware setup much easier after the fact, as you can actually dial them into a specific location instead of just free turning to the right or the left. All the rotary dials on the unit feature the same 1176 iconic design and have the see-through plastic bezels, so if you've owned a unit in the past or any modern hardware copy, you'll feel right at home using this one as well. Instead of the familiar 1176 rectangular buttons, Black Lion opted to go with backlit LED buttons, which are much easier to see from across the room and can be used in any conjunction, including the all-in mode. These are great if you want to dial in a specific combination of ratios, and I found they weren't quite as temperamental as the rectangular buttons. One of the many welcome changes to Black Lion's version of the 1176 is the addition of high-pass and low-pass filters on the compressor's output stage. These are both very gentle and musical filters. The high-pass starts at 100 Hz and is a 6 dB per octave roll-off, and the low pass starts at 10K and is a 6 dB per octave roll-off as well. So very subtle, but very useful and practical for a lot of applications. The compressor button has to be engaged to use any of the filters or to get any of the color or the benefit of the processing, as the button itself is a true hardware bypass from XLR input to XLR output on the back. The low pass filter turns out to be pretty handy for taking the digital edge off of modern day synths. On this next track, we've got the compressor working pretty hard on an acoustic bass sound for a jazz track that we're doing, and that's brought the noise floor up, so we're going to use the low-pass filter to roll off some of that high-end hiss that's been created as a result. In this example, we've got a room mic for some drum tracks that has a little bit of a low-end rumble problem, and we're going to use the high-pass filter to help roll a little bit of that off. In this next example, we're going to use the high and low pass filters as well as the compressor section to rein in some of the dynamics of the bass, but also to bring the overall tone a bit more forward, add a bit of presence, and help it stand out in the mix a little more. One of the biggest additions, and one of the things that sets it apart from a lot of the other 1176 style clones out there, is that the 17 adds a compressor mix knob. And this allows you to do parallel compression right on the unit itself. You can dial in the amount and the tone of the compression that you need and the attack and the release settings and get it exactly where you want it with the correct ratio. And then you can back it off and set that total mix to a percentage. And this is a really powerful feature when it comes to getting exactly the snare or drum sound or compressor sound that you're after. This one feature has really turned out to be kind of a game changer, and it makes using the 17 a lot more flexible, and we end up using it for a lot more things than we would normally just use a regular 1176 for. This next addition is also a welcome change to the standard 1176 architecture, and that's the addition of a sidechain filter. What this does is filter out frequencies before they reach the compressor detector circuit. So it doesn't affect the actual signal, but it does affect what the compressor actually sees before it starts its compression. And this is very handy for drum buses or for room mics or things like that, where you don't want the low end to fool the compressor into working way too hard. As you can hear, without the sidechain filter engaged, the compressor is starting to pump a lot because it starts to hear all that low-end frequency from the kick drum. Engaging the sidechain filter allows us to roll some of that off before it hits the compressor detector, and we can hear some of those transients start to come back in the kick drum. The attack knob on Black Lion 17 is very similar to a regular 1176 and more than fast enough to tame quick transients, and the release knob is similar as well, giving you control from 50 milliseconds to 800 milliseconds of release time. One curious thing about the attack and release knobs on the 17, the release knob appears to act the same way it does on a regular 1176, in that 7 is the fastest release and 1 is the slowest release. But the attack knob seems to be the exact opposite of a regular 1176. After a quick chat with Seth Berman over at Black Lion Audio, Seth confirmed that this is indeed the case, and the attack knob is the same as on their Bluey compressor, as the Bluey compressor is designed after Chris Lord-Alge's own custom 1176, which had the attack knob wired backwards on that unit. A quick note that a direct comparison between all the following units isn't really technically possible since they all have slightly different gain staging requirements. The CLA 76 emulation is designed to produce a +4 dBu output when presented with a -18 dB full-scale input from your DAW, and both the hardware units, the KT76 and the Black Lion 17, are technically both +4 devices. Seth from Black Lion also confirmed that some of the behavioral characteristics and the output might be lower on the 17 due to the loading from the passive summing network used in the compressor's mix knob. So with the knob differences and the summing characteristics aside, we can definitely get a sense of how each one of these behave under similar circumstances with similar ratios selected. So as you can hear, at an 8:1 ratio and at mild settings, all three of these units sound very similar, with the KT being a little bit darker maybe overall, the 17 being a little bit more forward sounding, and the CLA kind of somewhere in the middle, but all of them very, very accurate and faithful representations of an 1176 style compressor when you need one. But the differences become a lot more apparent between these three units when you start to push them into their extreme ranges. In this next example, we're going to take that same drum room mic, but we're going to slam all the compressors into their extreme ranges by using the all buttons in mode. As you can hear, they all have that famous 1176 all buttons in style compression and that familiar distortion. And all three have slightly different release knob characteristics required to achieve the same results, as we learned previously that the 17's attack knob is actually reversed from a standard 1176. But with that being said, the KT76 is probably the most well-behaved, with the CLA 76 coming in as a close second. But the 17's unique characteristics come unglued a little further, and that makes it a lot more fun to play with because the mix knob is there to dial in the exact amount you need. In this next example, we're going to hear the effect of all three compressors on a bass guitar, and at the end, we'll see how much the 17 can change those tonal characteristics. First, the dry signal. In this last example, we're going to hear the effect of all three comps on a rap vocal and hear how much excitement and pressure and intensity we can add with the 17 to it. First, the dry signal.
Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards. Grab your knives, stones, swords, guns, time to die for your land. Daughters, sons, we the brave hard ones. Gladiators with power, rather die with 10 warriors than fight with 1,000 cowards.
All right, so as you can see and hear, Black Lion 17 can be a straight up 1176 when you need that compression. But it's got a lot of extra mojo and a lot of extra color when you want to go further. And the mix knob is really the secret sauce here. It is quickly becoming my favorite studio tool when it comes to compression just because it makes it so incredibly flexible. You can use it on bass, on drums, on snare, on vocals, on just about anything, and then use that mix knob to dial in exactly as much color, control, and compression that you need. Hey, if you learned something or if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help keep the channel going. Stay safe, be creative. Thanks for hanging out with me today. We'll catch you guys in the next video.